Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today and welcome to our first Proof of DeSci of 2026. Over the past year, ValleyDAO has gone through a pretty important transition. We started 2025 focused on proving that decentralized science can actually work in the real world. And by the end of the year, we've seen research move from lab benches towards real products, real pilots, and real commercialization paths. So it's super exciting. And today's conversation is about taking a step back and looking at what we've built in 2025, what we learned along the way, and how that sets the foundation for where we're heading in 2026. We're going to talk about the research portfolio, the Grow token, and also dive into Flow, which became a core pillar of the ecosystem this year and plays a big role in how research gets translated into real world impact. So please welcome Albert and Morgan. Hey guys, and let's get into it. So first question to both of you, Albert, Morgan. 2025 was a big year for ValleyDAO and for DeSci as well, on both sides, the crypto side and also the kind of more scientific side. If you had to describe in one sentence what changed compared to where we were a year ago, what would you say?
I'll go first. Okay, you go ahead. You go.
No, I mean, to be honest, mine's a disappointing one because it probably sounds a little bit cliche, but I want to say one word: growth. I know that's very overused and kind of a buzzword, but honestly, like we grew the team considerably last year, and I think that's been one of the biggest, most refreshing key events for 2025. Like I feel like there's a fresh energy inside the core team, the extended team. There's new life and new perspectives being brought to our research portfolio, and I think those things just really make they feel like the ingredients for success for last year and the coming years. So I'm happy about that. We're moving in the right direction, and it's good to have new people on board.
Absolutely. And it wasn't only like growth of the ValleyDAO team, also the like we consider also the entrepreneurs in residence that we onboarded last year as also part of like this extended team, and managed to onboard two really talented individuals directly working on continuing the go-to-market and commercialization of the funded research projects. So that is super nice to see. Yeah, I mean, we learned so much from these new ecosystem contributors, and that all of that is compounding every day within the community.
Yes, absolutely. So 2025 was kind of a bumpy ride when it comes down to crypto. And it's really difficult to not to mention it because we're in DeSci, right? We're in decentralized science. And we're one of the handful projects that operate within blockchain, but we don't necessarily just base our whole existence, the whole existence of ValleyDAO on blockchain. It basically enables us to do a lot of things that traditionally we wouldn't be able to do. However, the whole DeSci space, like I said at the beginning, had kind of a bumpy ride throughout 2025. What do you think that 2025, what did it teach us when it comes down to DeSci, what DeSci can do, and what it probably shouldn't try to do? Morgan, you should go first.
I was actually going to let Albert go first this time. But yeah, I can kick us off. I think there's a lot of things, and to be honest, I'm probably going to sound a little bit messy and unstructured here, but I'll try and list some of the things that I saw last year. I think from the crypto side, there was so in the beginning of the year, we obviously had the bio protocol token launch, and I think that brought a lot of new energy and attention from the mass market into DeSci as a new narrative. And whilst most people, especially us in the DeSci space, since being here since the very beginning, would say that's an objectively good thing, I think what we saw is an increase in expectations, pressure, scams, and impersonations. Like all of the things that you maybe don't think about when you think, oh, I want DeSci to become a mainstream narrative, and end up on the big centralized exchanges. So that, for me, really brought a new perspective of like, we want more of the good, but of course, when we open ourselves up to that, we also invite some of the not so nice parts about being very much in the public eye and having a lot of expectations riding on top of you and the space. So whilst there was a big explosion in like capital influx in the beginning of the year, I think we've seen towards the latter end of 2025 that it's just started to creep out and seep out, because I mean, I don't think a lot of the people that got into it really understood the complexity, the timescales, and the things that were different about DeSci compared to maybe some of the other crypto narratives that they popped on in the past. So there was a little bit of a negative sentiment and energy that came about, and some harsh criticism that came about. And whilst I understand the concern, especially from people that are putting their own capital on the line for these things, DeSci was never a get rich quick scheme, and it never will be. And so even though maybe we've had some efflux of capital over the last few months, I think what remains is still the core believers, and those are the people that are going to carry it forward through the bear market and into hopefully another bull in the coming years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I fully agree. And just before we were going to get Albert to answer, I just want to say that that's just my personal take when it comes down to DeSci. It's like, being able to support and invest into an early stage products and tech businesses. That's just basically how I see it. It's not get rich quick scheme at all. It's not like other segments of crypto. I believe that it's a kind of a different maturity of a segment in crypto that DeSci is, and I'm really excited to see where it's going to take us in 2026. Albert, what's your take?
No, I mean, really well said, Morgan and Tom. I think what 2025 for me was, it showcased that DeSci can be like a traditional crypto narrative, that it has like the signs of that, which is a lot of speculation, a lot of trading volume, people making a lot of money, but also people losing a lot of money. And I think it's inevitable in a way, but it also served as a great opportunity for us to realize what is most important for the space. And the most important thing is to be science first, and only being science first. And by being science first, the rest will sort itself. Token price, fundraising, the things that, token holders will care about will come, as long as we stick to being science first. And it is really, really difficult, given that DeSci has attracted a lot of perhaps a little bit more junior people, or people who are not familiar with how research and technology development works. So it's been, I think a lot of people that entered the space realized that eventually many of them left, but hopefully some of them stayed, and that way strengthened the ecosystem further. But yeah, I mean, it's super optimistic about 2026, despite it looking like being a bear market year. But it's a great opportunity to once again be science first and focus on what matters.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the research and portfolio progress, because we already touched on the generic kind of DeSci market and the structure and what's changed in 2020. But there's a lot of super exciting things that are happening with the researchers that we funded last year and prior to that as well. So let's talk Hempy. So 2025, it moved from pure research towards real products. Why was this transition so important for ValleyDAO, Albert?
Yeah, really exciting stuff happened with Hempy 2025. For everybody's information, the research project was funded and started around January of that year. It was funded at the Austrian Center of Industrial Biotechnology, got funded through an IP token approach. And the project also finished during the same year, just 10 months later, on having demonstrated that we were actually able to do what we planned, what we set out to do, which was to take a natural fiber, in this case hemp fibers, and then soften them using enzymes, which are small biological machines that can cut away certain parts of the fiber that are undesirable. And in that way, we can achieve a much softer fiber stemming from a source that is much more sustainable, uses way less water, yields a larger amount per hectare where it grows. So it can really compete with cotton, but it needs to be softer. And that is exactly what we did that year. We proved that, and we are right now in the process of filing a patent together with some great IP lawyers that have worked with other DeSci projects in the past. And you want to talk about the hoodie as well, Tom, or we want to save that? for the next question?
I mean, if you want to move on to the hoodie, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah. So some of you might have seen the Hempy biotech hoodie.
It's pinned in this space, so everyone can click on it and check it out.
Yes. So it was recently listed on the Bio Shopify store, like they call it the BioFi. So if you go to biofy.xyz, you can actually buy the first hoodie. And this hoodie, this collection, it's like a limited edition. It's around 90 to 100 hoodies that we manufactured. And it's a sort of like a stepping stone towards wider commercialization. It's primarily for the community to wrap like a nice bow tie to the project, but also to signal a sort of like a transition to market, like, hey, this is like now the time to bring it closer towards commercialization. And very early this year, we officially onboarded a so-called, and we call them entrepreneurs in residence, are people that we onboard into the project that with the intention of them becoming a co-founding CEO of a spin out that bears with it this technology, the hemp treatment technology. And we're now actively working together with them and particularly talking with a range of different potential pilot partners that can help us scale up the technology. So it's super exciting. And it's, to me, this is what DeSci is really all about, and we have now been able to demonstrate the full cycle of going from IP token to product, which is really exciting. And it also signals, the overall maturity of this space. It's a journey, and then everybody is going, like all projects are going through that same journey together. And, other DeSci projects have also been able to demonstrate this. So it's sort of like, DeSci round 2 happening overall in the space. And it's super nice to see.
Absolutely. I don't know, Morgan, if there's anything that you'd like to add to what Albert just said.
I think he covered the main things. I would only add that I think for us, it was particularly special because I think in the beginning when we started doing this, we were very adamant that because of our niche in like industrial biotech or climate-based biotech, that we weren't actually ever going to get to a consumer product because most things were going to be B2B or large scale or even, protected organisms and engineered stuff that we can't let people get their hands on. Whereas obviously the Hempy project took a very different direction. And I think it's been a nice circle back for us to the reality that there is applications out there that people can touch and interact with. There are stuff that can kind of close that community loop and make it more tangible and accessible for the community rather than it just being this, high level technical conversations on abstract concepts.
Absolutely. It's also really important just to highlight that, Hempy is one of the kind of the main flagship research project that we're working on. And it's fascinating, I think, not just for us, but for the community as well, to see all the steps, all the moving pieces along the way, from a project, from a researchers that have been funded throughout the advancements in this research and those milestones and data drops that we've had last year as well, towards this real commercialization and releasing of the product. Currently, like Albert said, and it's pinned here in the Twitter Spaces, or if you're listening to us not live, but as a podcast episode, it's probably somewhere in the description. You can click on the link and check it out. You can use there's a code and you can use the special offer on BioFi shop. However, there's also going to be pre-sale directly on the Hempy's website, but that's coming very, very soon. And we're going to go all out when it comes down to the pre-sale on both platforms once the product page on Hempy's website is going to be released. So stay tuned because there's a lot of really cool things that we have for you guys.
And if I may just pitch the hoodie just quickly. So our intention with this hoodie is to create something, provide something in your wardrobe that lasts for a very, very long time. And we have sourced the highest quality hemp fiber blend and treated that with enzymes, the best source that we could find. We've intentionally made certain design decisions, such as not including any sort of plastics in the production. So you don't have to worry about any microplastics being shedded off when you wear it, but also when you wash it. So it's good for you. It's good for the planet. and it is proudly made in Europe as well. And so for those of you maybe concerned about shipping things halfway across the globe, this is intended to remove that thing that, that some people care about. And as Tom said, you can get it on the BioFi store. So it's BioFi, BIOFY.xyz, and you can find it there. And soon we will also list it on the main Hempy website.
Amazing. And Hempy is not the only research project with a lot of progress in place. Let's talk about Cocoa Zero maybe. So Cocoa Zero made serious lab progress in 2025. Albert, why is sustainable fat production such a big problem worth solving, and where are we with it right now?
I mean, fat is not maybe the most fun topic to talk about, but it's a very important ingredient in nearly all foods. And when I say ingredient, is like, a lot of food products are made with the, particularly chocolate, right, which is the type of product we've been mainly focusing on in relationship to this research project. So we partnered with Imperial College London on this project, funded around $300,000 worth of R&D. And last year, we were able to demonstrate that we can use yeast organisms and sort of like ferment fats that are and bioproduced fats that are very similar to those found in cocoa. So the overall process really mimics that of beer brewing. And instead of shipping cocoa, once again, halfway across the globe, we can locally produce that exact same ingredient and use it in, for example, chocolate products, which are products that are essential in society. And just in the last few years, given the extreme weather conditions, a lot of the cocoa plantations, which are located close to the equator, have suffered a lot of drought. So, the places where these products are grown, the cocoa plant, there's just not enough water, there's not enough rainfall, and thus the price of cocoa has essentially mooned. So if you invested in cocoa futures, you probably made a lot of money. But this overall, spikes the prices of all chocolate related or cocoa dependent products. And that is exactly what we want to solve for and provide industry a ingredient that they can use directly in their products.
There's so much that happened on the Cocoa Zero front. There's a lot of actually really, really awesome aspects that we show in our little documentary video that we've shared in September of last year. I've just pinned it here in the Twitter Spaces. There's also going to be a link in the description if you want to check it out on Twitter or YouTube, where Oliver actually walks us around the Imperial College London and shows us the fats, the production, the mechanisms and process that he's using to achieve those Cocoa Zero goals. In my opinion, it's just absolutely mesmerizing to see and understand the process from behind the scenes. So I do recommend for you guys to go and check it out. We are nearly halfway through the Twitter space, and we also have other things to talk about. So when it comes down to visiting the labs, we've recently went with Albert to the UK again to visit Pranta and Tattva. And guys, we are working now on releasing a super cool documentary and an interview with Pranta. I don't want to share a little bit too much, but what I want to say is that Tattva's gaining momentum internally within the team at ValleyDAO. And Albert, can you tell us a little bit more, maybe what have we done on the Tattva front so far, and what can we expect from Tattva in the coming months? Because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we had a lot of fun visiting Tattva's lab earlier this year. I think it was like the second week of January. And it was a very interesting setup because usually biotech labs are concentrated around like the capital city. But we had to take the train all out to Exeter, which is around 3-4 hours west of London, where Tattva's labs and the manufacturing facilities are located. And so what does Tattva do? So they have been able to develop this microorganism. It's a cyanobacterial organism. So it's derived from water, from the sea. And it's also known as algae in different simplified term. What's interesting about it is that they can grow it in a way that results in a almost like a concrete type of material that can be used in construction industry. So for insulation, for like replacing concrete. And what's really interesting about this product, this material, is that it is carbon negative. So it uses carbon dioxide as a main building block. And so it can absorb carbon from the atmosphere and generate a really useful material and I think the construction industry is probably one of the largest industries in the world. So there's a lot of potential disruption that can be made with this technology. What's even particularly interesting here is that the material itself also has a very interesting aesthetic property to it. I don't know if maybe we can share something. Yeah, in the picture that Tom, or in the tweet that Tom just shared, in the background, you see me sitting there with Prantar, but in the background, you can see how the material looks like. We've been, brainstorming a little bit, us and Tattva, on like, okay, how can we bring this into the consumer segment? And so we're right now working on a new line of product using this material that can serve as an everyday object, such as like a furniture or a lamp. And I think it will be very, very appealing for people who are, let's say, collectors of biotech consumer products, but people who want something very unique in their homes. And so we are lining up and going to partner with a bioprotocol on this to launch an IP token crowdfunding campaign and enable people to get their hands on the first prototype of this product.
Absolutely. ValleyDAO is not just the researchers. It's not just working with scientists and researchers just on those kind of projects, but we're also form different partnerships and new initiatives. One of the examples is Primordia, that we haven't really talked about that much on ValleyDAO's socials so far, but I'm sure that's going to change very, very soon. Guys, what can you tell us about Primordia? What is it going to change? What is it going to bring to the ecosystem, to DeSci, and of course to biotech?
I'm hijacking this one. No, I think, so many things. So I think when we started getting involved in ValleyDAO, like this was very much a dream of ours to be able to empower people around the world to do crazy and wacky science. I think that's what kind of gets us all out of bed in the morning every day, and ultimately pushes us to work on these things, because I think we've all experienced, like, our core team, for example, is pretty young. We have experienced the kind of ivory tower gatekeeping of academic research. And, if you don't have a PhD, or if you don't have 5 years of experience in certain things, you're never going to get close to the cutting edge and be able to work with some of the coolest tools. But that's changing now, like with AI, with automation, decreasing costs in DNA sequencing and things like that. We're at a huge inflection point in history where these types of science and this type of research is suddenly becoming accessible to ordinary people that have a few $100 extra to spare. So for less than the latest iPhone will cost you, we're now able to give grants out to people that they can actually conduct real experiments that might be able to have tangible real world impact. And of course, many or most of them are going to fail, or they're going to hit some unexpected challenges, or things are not going to work and they're going to have to pivot. But that's part of the process of innovating, right? That is what we are all supposed to be doing here in deep tech, especially with a commercial and applied focus. And so that is what we want to foster and empower with the Primordia initiative. So what it is, it's a micro grants program. We are raising on a rolling basis, basically, a pool of funding that we will then distribute to different applicants. We're going to review all the applications. We've already got, I know, a lot of very interested people. We're going to review all those applications, decide on which ones we want to fund, and then we're going to distribute some grants up to $3,000. Very small, hence the term micro grant, but with big ideas, you can actually get a lot done with that. And, to give some, so we're working, it's not just us at ValleyDAO, we're working in collaboration with the Biopunk Labs. And Elliot especially has been very involved in the biohacking scene over in San Francisco and in California. And there's a lot of stuff happens there just because of the sheer osmosis effect of there being tons of biotech labs, some pretty decent research institutions who even give away free equipment because they got brand new lab robots, and now they don't need the old ones anymore, and they're just giving it away, a lot of it, or they're giving it away very, very cheaply. So there's a lot of community labs have started to pop up there, and it's one of the few places in the world where they can thrive so much on so little. And so, yeah, I know Elliot's been working with some really cool projects. I know he himself has done some wacky things. If you follow his journey, I think at one point he was on a diet of solely consuming algae. So yeah, he is, I would say, one of the leading advocates of decentralized science in our generation, in our cohort. And it's really a pleasure to be working with someone so committed to the game. Yeah, we've been working behind the scenes to raise that first pot of money. We're providing a matching pool as well, so just to get things kind of kicked off. But our hope is that we can build a long-term community of committed donors who really want to see this thing thrive. And by giving as little as $5 or $10 a month, you can contribute to quite a lot. And of course, every donor is going to be kept up to date on how all of those projects go. So yeah, I think we're super excited to get things kicked off. The website is being developed as we speak, so there will be a lot more for people to get their hands on in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and just to add something there, so Primoria is really about igniting new life and energy and excitement about the idea of community biotech. And what community biotech is to me is biotech that is conducted outside of academic labs. And it is happening in many places in the world where you have these hacker spaces or DIY community biospaces where you can rent a small lab space for maybe like $100 per month and start doing your own experimentation. And what we really want to achieve is to help people sort of build their own portfolio of experiments that they have done in a similar fashion to how a open source independent software developer, builds stuff, puts it on GitHub, and then it gains traction. But then, they can then go and show that, let's say, to a future employer or a future or somebody that can, for example, give them follow-on funding. So it's really about helping people setting a foundation for their careers or their ambitions in the field of biotech outside of academia.
Yeah. So as you can see, guys, ValleyDAO's core mission is to directly fund researchers and to fund biotech researchers that are done in a completely different way to traditional funding models, right? And even initiatives like Primoria are here to help us create and build the biotech community, to help and support it as well at its core. But funding those researchers wouldn't be really possible, or wouldn't really make sense rather, without one of the key components to what we do here at ValleyDAO, which is the Grow Token. So Albert, could you just tell us a little bit more about what is Grow Token and how would you explain it to someone completely new?
The Grow Token acts as the sort of access key to gain exposure to the success of ValleyDAO. So that, for example, includes successful outcomes of our funded research projects and the potential innovation in climate and industrial biotech that they generate. It is fundamentally a crypto token. And so anybody who decides to invest, should be aware that it fluctuates with the crypto industry as well. But so our priority right now is to build as much value as possible. So for whoever wants to, hold this token, they know that there is real people, real technologies being worked on and being brought to the market and to a place where they can have a real impact on the people and the planet.
Brilliant. Thank you. And just for anyone that's tuning in right now, we've already discussed the research and portfolio updates here at ValleyDAO and what happened and what we've managed to achieve with the researchers in 2025. We've also had a little discussion in the beginning around the general DeSci market and situation and what's happening. And now let's just switch it up a little bit. I'm Morgan. Hello. Let's talk a little bit about flow. So to anyone that's maybe not even aware just yet, ValleyDAO is not just about funding research projects, but we're also about AI, and we're also about making the whole space and biotech much more efficient, easier to use, and to be honest, just better. We want to cut down on a lot of processes that are happening currently in traditional biotech. And Morgan, as this mastermind behind Flow, is going to tell us a little bit more about it. So Morgan, Flow became this core pillar of ValleyDAO in 2025. What problems were you trying to solve at the beginning when you started building it, and what can you tell us now about Flow?
Thanks, Tom. Without sounding like a broken record, I always come back to this one statistic because it's honestly so deeply concerning that I feel it deserves being repeated so many fucking times. 97%, up to 97% of all patents ever filed never, ever make any money. They're never commercialized. They never generate revenues. They don't even recoup the cost of filing the patent. So when you think about, okay, it doesn't exactly cost millions to file a patent, but it certainly costs a few hundreds, if not thousands. That's a lot of money wasted just on the administrative side alone. And if you think about the amount of money, for example, like a ValleyDAO research project could be up to 300K funded into these projects to develop technologies, file patents, and then they're just put on a dusty shelf somewhere and they never see the light of day. To me, and to anyone that wants to accelerate innovation, is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And so I think from the very early stages of working with researchers, I was personally really firstly concerned, but also really curious as to why this is and what can be done about it. And so we spoke to quite a significant number of tech transfer offices, researchers, entrepreneurs, like actual companies and startups that made it through the valley of death. And I think what we came to after extensive discussions and interviews was a framework, a blueprint, and identifying what are the key areas of weakness that we could realistically have an impact on beyond just giving more money to researchers. And so those things are, first of all, technology de-risking. So actually making sure that when a technology is designed or a patent is filed, that the technology actually makes sense in the context of the market. And that's something that they don't teach you a lot of the time in academia. You're there to, of course, make an invention, make something new, or even publish a compelling paper. But nobody's really telling you, hey, like this is what the industry needs. This is what we need to move the needle. Or, you know, in the case of climate, this is how we need to be able to decarbonize industries in a scalable way. And so without that knowledge, we make a lot of, I won't say useless stuff, but stuff that, you know, doesn't quite fit the real world that it's supposed to exist in. The second key pillar is obviously business development. So researchers are great at developing new technologies, at solving complex technical problems. But what they often lack is an understanding of how the market actually looks, how the competition looks, what they're doing, how a business even operates, or how their technology will be deployed at scale. Like in the commercial context, for example, you develop a new enzyme treatment process. Well, you think, okay, great, I've done it. Mission accomplished. I'm going home. Well, no, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You need bioreactors. You need like treatment conditions. You need energy to supply this entire facility. You need staff that are actually going to run the facility. So there's just so much that you don't consider. And even when you're crunching the numbers on the techno-economics, you might think, yeah, I've managed to make this process tenfold cheaper. That must mean that it's going to have a commercial reality. But that's just not the case, because it might be 10 times cheaper by process, but it might require you to overhaul the entire industrial pipeline for producing that particular product, in which case it's going to cost you 10 times more, not 10 times less. And so without all of this knowledge, it's very difficult to build a compelling case, especially to go towards venture investment. And so that brings us to the third and final pillar, which is fundraising. And so this is kind of the thing that ties everything together. And how can we take a de-risk technology and a compelling business model and turn it into a fundable project or a fundable outcome, whether that's through grants, competitions, VCs, whoever, or even crypto in our case, right? And so that's where it started. Those are the problems we're trying to solve. And since January last year, we started actively building the platform. And now we've built something that's pretty damn impressive. So if it interests you at all, then I would recommend joining our webinars. We're now hosting every 2 weeks on Thursdays. So you can always find us on socials and see when the next one is. But we'll be doing live demos on those sessions. So we actually get to dive into some real research projects that especially that our community finds interesting, and see what we can do with the platform with those particular projects. And I think you'll be quite surprised how extensive those features are. So we built features in all of the 3 pillars, but as I said, everything is both vertically and horizontally integrated. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing this task, now I'm doing this task. Like, it's on the back end, the AI knows everything about your project. And so it really is like the co-founder you wish you had.
And this makes so much sense. And what I wanted to point out is that in 2025, we have run different hackathons, and we've participated with Flow in different events in this kind of natural environment for the youngsters in biotech. And I think that that's incredibly important to talk about, because those researchers at the core, and when it comes down to traditional biotech, they are great at science, right? But a lot of times they struggle with translation. So just wanted to ask you, where do they usually get stuck? And what did you actually learn in this natural environment for them in 2025 from deploying Flow in the real research settings and hackathons?
Yeah, so I'll probably start with a more general observation, which is that because of the context that researchers work in, many of them academic institutions optimizing for publications, it's an echo chamber, basically. And so it's very easy to convince yourself that you actually understand the world outside because, yes, you're in a room full of people that really deeply understand 0.1% of how the world works. And those are absolutely no discredit to them. Some of the most intelligent people in the world, and they do work that many of us could never even imagine doing for much less money than they deserve. So really kudos to those people giving their lives to research. But the problem is it's an echo chamber. As I said, like, people don't have a full, broad understanding of how the world works, especially how business works. And the reality is it's just very, very different to how research works and how academia works, in terms of, writing and submitting publications, conducting peer review. It's not the same system and not playing by the same rules. And so I say the biggest pitfall that people fall into, especially intelligent people, like, they are really good at convincing themselves of something they already believe, convincing other people of something they already believe. So if they see the world in a certain way because of the lens they're looking through, they're really good at just building an intellectual moat around that perspective. And I think what business forces you to do, especially a startup, forces you to do, is constantly engage with people outside of your bubble, constantly engage with the real world and how things are really working, regardless of how your perspective is, because it's just that is just the way things work, and it doesn't matter your opinion of that. When you're confronted with that, you have to adapt. You have to change your vision. You have to be able to reshape your ideas and proposals into something that will ultimately make sense. So I think for us, bringing those insights into the experimental design process very early on has such a significant impact on whether or not this is a commercializable technology.
That is brilliant. And what I think is really important to highlight as well here is that the experience that we're getting with working both on Flow with the testers through those hackathons, they really open up a lot of, they answer a lot of questions that we've had at the beginning. When you started working on Flow, when our development team as well has been working on Flow. And the amount of updates and changes throughout the last few months even is absolutely astonishing, because I am one of the testers of Flow as well, since, I don't know if I would say early days, but definitely the first half of 2025. And there's just so much that's changed across those months and weeks, sometimes even, that it's great to see. It's great to see that we're able to really adapt to this feedback that we're getting from the users straight away, pretty much. That's amazing. And what I wanted to ask you as well, Morgan. So the knowledge graph and agent workflows are a huge part of Flow, of course. And they allow researchers and students as well, biotech enthusiasts, to really validate their ideas, their business plans. They'll help them even generate and craft the business plans, references, and to validate in general the whole idea, the whole aspect of the research and the business that is there at the end. What's different between Flow and other AI tools that are there? Like, I know the answer here, but I really want you to tell and explain to people of how many different components, when it comes down to artificial intelligence, of how many different components and language models Flow is actually built on.
Yeah, great question. So I think the first piece of context to give is, so my master's was in systems and synthetic biology. And a lot of what we learned and what I was personally obsessed with was systems design. And so, not coming from a technical background and now building software felt like, at least initially, felt like a huge jump to me in terms of my focus and like where my skill sets lied. But in reality, when I looked at, let's say, academia and this whole commercialization engine, I saw a broken system. And so, that then got me excited and interested in building software, because it was a way that you can systematize, like literally build individual components and arrange them in predictable arrangements and be able to drive social change. And that's also what got me involved and interested in blockchain and crypto. Was the same thing, was watching these digital technologies that have very predictable, systematized designs in them have a real world impact on society, right? Like changing people's behavior, changing people's psychology, ending up in big news outlets, or even threatening to destabilize the financial system, right? Like all of these things are absurd to think about how much change you can actually drive from just building a technical product. So that's the first piece of kind of wisdom, is really that Flow is designed from a systems perspective. It's not just, let's build a chatbot and write some really clever prompts. No, we've tried to build and systematize the entire commercialization process. It's not to figure out how you're going to even do the things that you need to figure out, or how you need to arrange your next experiments, but just give that template to you and let you do the thing, to let you be the executive that is making decisions, acting on things, responding to knowledge and insights that are constantly being fed to you, rather than just spending 50% of your time just navigating the complexity of what's in front of you. So that's the other kind of general approach that we've taken. And to get more specific with that, we have built agents. Yes, of course, many of them are designed using interesting and in some cases provocative prompts, but they're designed in a way that it doesn't feel like you're interacting with an AI or a chatbot. It's not that typical experience of, first of all, having to coach your AI to then be able to coach you. Because I think that's one of the big barriers of using a chatbot, is like, first, you need to spend like 30 minutes getting it up to speed on where you're at, what you're doing, how you want it to respond, how you want it to behave. And we've just done all of that for you. So you don't have to do all of that. Like, it knows everything about your project. It knows what you're working on. It knows what your priorities are. And you can just ask it the questions you really need to ask it right off the bat. So that's the first thing. And then on the workflows, we've combined the inputs and outputs of different agents in a very structured approach. You always get to have an input on what goes in, what comes out in terms of quality or accuracy, or if you even want to change things that the AI is recommending because you just have a different opinion, or something that it doesn't, that's absolutely fine. But we are doing a lot of information handoff in between these agents, such that what gets delivered to you in the end is an outcome, right? It's a actionable report, or it's de-risking strategy, or it's a design of a new experiment, or it's an assay that's going to identify or de-risk your technology in certain dimensions that might be interesting to investors. Those are real tangible outcomes. They're not hand-wavy AI or buzzword, soup. They are real things that researchers want. We know they want because we spoke to many of them. And I think if people can get past the fact that, it's AI, there's a lot of negative sentiment going around about that at the moment, and that it's actually useless or it's stupid and it has no place in research. I think, if you have that opinion, just try it. Just try it, because I promise you'll change your mind pretty quickly.
And thank you, Morgan, for explaining that. And when it comes down to 2026, what can we expect from Flow? And what I would definitely love you to talk about a little bit and inform our community about the webinar series that you've launched last week. And what can people learn through those webinars? How can they sign up? And why should they sign up?
Go ahead, Albert. You got your hand up.
So I just wanted to quickly just add something here to what Morgan said. So many people is probably have noticed on social media, particularly on X, is this whole hype about Claudebot, which later became Maltbot, which is now, I think, is called Claw something else. And it's this piece of software is like integrates a bunch of different AI tools for you. But to use it, you need to understand like things like how to use a command line interface. You need to know how to host a server to integrate all of these tools. And I don't see a future where particularly researchers are going to sit and spend a bunch of time doing that. It can be very powerful once you've done it, but the time it takes for you to put all of that together, it's a lot. And the way that I see that what we're doing with Flow is we're bringing all of that together in a very simple user interface and to deliver the best that AI can deliver at this current moment. So Flow will also improve and become even better as AI itself becomes better. And our objective is going to continuously being simplifying all of these technologies as much as possible and deliver them in the way that scientists can use them the best.
Amen. Thanks for that. So I guess, yeah, to return to what to expect in 2026. The first big thing is that I think we finally hit, well, I mean, I spoke to someone yesterday, like, this is definitely a lot more than a minimum viable product. So we're past that point. We're well past that point. But from my perspective, we're at a point where I can look at it and think, yeah, it's 70% or even maybe being more conservative, 50% of where I dreamed it to be. And that is already a huge milestone in terms of like the technological development side. I think we're finally at a point where we are ready to launch it and have people using it more frequently. First big kind of change in 2026, a big new thing is going to be that we will publicly launch the platform and everybody will be able to access it and have a membership, and hopefully we'll get a lot of value out of it and get some more projects funded. So that's the first thing. To kind of build up towards that, we are running a fortnightly webinar series. We had one last week on Thursday. They are going to be every 2 weeks, so there will be one next Thursday as well. The first one we focused on how to validate concepts in biotech before you actually spend money. And this next one will be diving a little bit deeper into some of those ideas. And actually, I think it's titled "Thinking Like a Product Manager in biotech." And so it's again with the theme of getting academics outside of that little bubble of, seeing the world as repeatable, peer-reviewed, publishable science, and starting to see it more as an engineering discipline and a product-led discipline as well. So that's going to be next Thursday. It's going to be posted all over socials, and there'll be a Luma link available very soon. The other thing that we're doing, which I guess won't matter to maybe some of the listeners of this podcast, but it definitely matters to us, is we're trying to find universities and labs that want to partner with us and actually pilot Flow in their workflows. We think that it's going to have a lot of value to whoever is using it. And I think institutions, especially research institutions, are the perfect testing ground for that. People working at the cutting edge of science and technology, especially with sometimes a younger audience, like a lot of the boots on the ground are students and people who maybe have never even worked in a startup or even understand how a startup operates. So there's an educational merit just to being able to understand now these new terms and these new processes, but there's also very much a sophisticated and tangible benefit of, we hope, PIs and commercially focused labs being able to use Flow to get more funding to their projects and ultimately have more of those patents less of those patents collecting dust on the shelves.
Thank you. And I know we're actually past 1 hour mark already, but there's one more question that I really want to ask you guys, especially Albert, because we already have this idea of what we can expect from Flow in 2026. But Albert, as we move into 2026, what does success actually look like for ValleyDAO? What can you tell us about the plans for the research projects and portfolios? I know we've already touched on individual research projects already and what we can expect in the upcoming months from them. But can you give us a kind of bigger picture of what we want to achieve in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to say pilots. So what a pilot to us is a form of partnership with an existing industrial stakeholder where we can collaborate with them on integrating or testing the technologies that we have developed. We see that as like the most viable go-to-market strategy for industrial biotechnologies. And so we really want to, go out there and solve real problems with with the projects that we have funded. So that's one of like the key objectives, like to put it as simple as possible. And we're working across our entire portfolio with different entrepreneurs and residents that work on each individual project. And we have on average around 5 to 10 calls with potential partners every week. So we're talking with a lot of different people at the current moment, and we're having really interesting results. And some of those conversations, they look like they're going to convert into actual partnerships where the other party is going to be willing to pay for our technology and our solution and the service that and the value that we can provide. And just to add a detail about a project we haven't really talked about, BioMind, previously called CardaForge, so we rebranded it to BioMind. We have a big launch, a public announcement coming out soon about that. And sometime in the middle of this year, we expect to have extracted critical metals using a biotechnological approach from electronic waste. So taking old electrical components, circuit boards, and then extracting these critical metals from them using an approach that is conducted at a much lower temperature that uses much at a time where the demand for metals is extremely high and will most likely continue soaring for the next 10 years. So really excited for that one. And so be on the lookout for that towards the middle of this year, where we're looking to provide the community and the ecosystem with a data drop about this project to showcase what it can do.
What kind of people you hope to attract this year? These scientists, researchers, students, builders, partners, devs, contributors. The more important question, why should we attract them and why should they join the ValleyDAO ecosystem?
I mean, it's a joke answer, but it's also serious in that I don't personally believe in defining people by what they do. And so I know researchers that are very creative artists and vice versa, artists that have very quickly penetrated their way into like very cutting edge research and seem to have absolutely no problem in excelling at it. So yeah, I think we just want to attract people, right, that have an ambition, have energy, have like executive abilities as well, right? I think from the early days of DeSci, we had a lot of energy that came into it, but not a lot of that converted into tangible outcomes. Now I think we know how to spot it and identify the people that have executive capabilities and are actually able to follow through on their ambitions and their goals. And so we just want more of those people in our orbit because we've got a lot of work to do and we can't do it alone.
I couldn't say it any better. You nailed it.
Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. So, as you can hear, there's a lot that's happened in 2025 here at ValleyDAO, and there's even more that's planned for 2026. There is going to be an article summarizing 2025 year in review being released very, very shortly. If you're listening to this podcast episode, Proof of DeSci, it's probably already in the description, so you can go ahead and click on it and check it out. Albert, Morgan, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your energy in 2025, for your hard work, for ValleyDAO and Flow. And I'm pretty sure myself and the whole community is incredibly excited to see what 2026 is going to bring. So thanks everyone for joining us today and for being part of this conversation. Like I said, 2025 was an important year for ValleyDAO, not because everything was perfect, but because we proved that decentralized science can move from ideas to real research, real products, and real paths towards impact. As we head into 2026, the focus is really clear: deeper commercialization, stronger tools for researchers, and continuing to build bridges between science, community, and biotech as an industry. If you're new here and curious to how to get involved, whether you're a researcher, builder, contributor, dev, supporter, student, anyone else, there's a place for you in the ValleyDAO ecosystem, just like Morgan said. Just reach out to us, follow us on X, on Twitter, join us on Discord or Telegram. And finally, thank you again, Albert Morgan, for joining us today. Thanks everyone who listened in. Let's keep building. Thank you.